This isn't ramen, and it isn't pho. It's just me satisfying a craving with what I have around.
Sometimes I have the most random things in my fridge that just need to be used. Mash it all together and something incredible happens. For almost a decade of my life, I lived in a pretty big city. And now I find myself living in a much smaller rural city. I can't just hop on a streetcar and go to a Korean grocery store. We don't have a ramen shop. There's nowhere to go and get dim sum. So I find myself trying to recreate a lot of those flavors at home. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. But this impromptu seafood noodle soup was just what I was looking for today. So let me show you how I made it. The main components I found to play around with are offcuts, mostly fat from a pork loin, and I had some shrimp. Thankfully, I saved the shells. That's going to be key in making this super seafoody.
Normally, I would roast the components that I want to boil to make a broth or stock, but my oven is out of commission at the moment, so I'm improvising with a non-stick pan. Cutting my pork scraps into smaller pieces and starting them in a cold pan, sprinkling with salt, then turning the burner to a medium heat. While that's warming up, I'm cleaning my shrimp. These are supposed to be deveined, but I like to double check while I remove the shells under cold water. Now, the shrimp can go back into the fridge while I get back to the pork, which doesn't take long to give up its juices, and when it's nice and browned, I'm taking all the pieces out and putting them in a pot of hot, not boiling water. I'm adding a splash of fish sauce and dumping in my shrimp shells to deglaze the pan. While the shells are flavoring and thickening this mixture, and after reducing for a few minutes, I'm emptying the whole pan into the hot water. While it's at a rolling boil, I'm adding fish sauce, sesame oil, soy sauce, white pepper, ground ginger, and garlic powder. After tasting, I think it needs some more fish sauce. I can put the sesame oil away because less is more with some ingredients. After another taste, I think it needs a bit more soy sauce. And now for my taste, it's pretty much perfect. I'm using a colander to strain my stock and squeezing every last bit of life out of these food scraps to maximize the flavor I can get from them. A more refined person might double strain this, but I'm an animal, so I'm just dumping it right back into my pot. The broth is going to keep reducing while I mince some garlic and melt some butter in the same saucepan that I used for the pork fat and shrimp shells, heating the garlic until fragrant and then placing my shrimp in the pan. After about a minute, I'm turning the shrimp over in the same order that I put them in, and then turning off the burner and letting the residual heat do its thing. I've got this awesome Rooster brand vermicelli, so I'm going to plunk a bundle into my hot broth, and after 2 minutes, the noodles are tender and it's time to plate this up. This isn't fancy, but to me, this is comfort food that I threw together, and the most comforting part is that I'm being sure not to let anything go to waste. Now, after I top with some shrimp, I can't forget to throw some greens on top. I just happen to have some parsley.
Okay, let's see how this crazy experiment turned out. These noodles are so quick and easy, like honestly, just whatever you're putting them in, as long as it's hot. They cook extremely fast and they really soak up lots of flavor. That worked out great. The shrimp, extremely tender. Until next time, I've been Lydia Jones. This is Dinner with Lydia, and I hope you come back. Thanks. I could have put a little bit less sriracha, which is a weird thing for me to say.